Chair Cheryl Conti.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming out and for your patience with technical difficulties. You know, many of us are technologists or digital marketers, but that doesn't mean the internet always cooperates. I am so excited to tell you that this is one of the biggest Netroots Nation conferences of all time. And that's thanks to you. We have more sponsors, more speakers, more organizations, people from 48 states and 7 different countries. So we are America. How exciting is that? I'm Cheryl Conti, for those who weren't listening during the intro. I am really proud to be the CEO of the Impact Seat Foundation, which is building a world in which women, especially women of color, can become successful business leaders. Did you know, yes, right? Did you know that black women are launching startups at the highest rate of any demographic in the United States, including white men? Yes. Diverse-led companies are more innovative, they are more productive, and they are more profitable. And diverse-led movements are more powerful too. Yes? Yes. That's us. I'm also really proud to be the board chair of Netroots Nation. And thank you. And you may not realize how few staff and how few dollars we have to put on this incredible event every year. We could not do it without each and every one of you here in this room and each and every one of you listening online. So thank you. And I would love to get a big round of applause, lots of hoops, lots of hollers for the incredibly dedicated, hardworking, passionate Netroots Nation team. Yes. Absolutely. This doesn't all happen magically. I also want to thank my fellow 501c3 and 501c4 volunteer board members. Behind the scenes, they work awfully hard to make sure this is perfect for y'all. Yes. Super quickly, I'm also known as the chair and founder of dobigthings.com. It's a progressive digital agency that works with leading causes and candidates. Just in time for this conference, we have launched sparkecho.com. It is an invite-only, progressive-only, pay-for-performance influencer platform. There are a lot of influencers here in the room tonight. This is the original home of political community organizers online. We really want you to check it out. It's a place where we're partnering our influencers like you and causes and candidates together to work for the issues we believe in. We have an amazing group of folks coming out shortly. Marcos Mulitsas is going to talk to us about what we need to do now as a movement. We have the executive directors for the Center for Popular Democracy, and Alilia Mejia and Demario Cooper. Yes. We've got Cephas Uncle Bobby Johnson, who is the head of the Love Not Blood Foundation, and he happens to also be the uncle of Oscar Grant. Finally, Alicia Garza and Justin Jones of the Tennessee 3 are gonna be, in conversation with us. Great fireside chat. So without further ado, I want to introduce my good friend, Marcos Mulitsas, who is the founder of Daily Kos, the founder of Civics, the founder of, one of the co-founders of Vox, and one of the people with the vision to create this entire conference 18 years ago. Come on out, Marcos.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Cheryl. Hi, everybody. My name is Marcos Melitzis. I am the founder of Daily Kos. Some of you might know this, but the Netroots Nation convention emerged out of the Daily Kos community. That was 17 years ago. I'm still immensely proud of the work that they've done this entire time and what they have been able to manage and build in those 17 years. So I'm also a native Chicagoan. So I'm excited to be back in my hometown with kindred spirits fighting for our democracy, for the issues that we care about and the people that we love. Before I get started talking, I do have the pleasure of announcing next year's Netroots Nation. So anybody curious to know? Baltimore. Baltimore, July 11 to 13. July 11 to 13 in Baltimore. So I'm excited to be here in Chicago. I'm excited to be here in this moment introducing tonight's itinerary, because we're going to be talking about state-based organizing. And those of you who have been part of this movement for the last several decades know how hard it has been to convince people to give a damn about state-based organizing. When I started Daily Kos back in 2002, I would write about local issues and races and issues, but people wanted to talk about the presidential race. That's where all the energy, all the excitement, all the effort went into. They wanted to argue about Howard Dean, Wesley Clark, or John Kerry. They wanted to talk about Barack Obama versus Hillary Clinton, about Bernie Sanders versus the world. And the presidency is important. Nobody doubts that, right? But it's up here. And there was this entire world of elected offices and positions that really mattered. Republicans knew that. They weren't shy. They spent 50 years working up from that bottom, building school board elections and county commissioners and city councils and local judges and statewide judges. And it allowed them to build a machine that they built that ultimately today has led to a 6-3 conservative majority in the Supreme Court and all the damage that it's doing to the country. So a lot of us, I'm sure most of you in the room, were screaming into the void, begging progressives to care about those downstate, down ballot elections. And it was a different world, so to speak. The party back then had troubles. This is back in 2000, right? Conservatives knew what they stood for. They knew what they were about. They knew they were about lower taxes, strong national security, and family values, right? Everybody could say that. Everybody in this room could repeat that. They knew what they stood for. Democrats didn't really know what they stood for. They were afraid of their own shadow. I mean, you all remember this, right? Back in the late 1990s to 2000s, Democrats knew they were not Republicans. That was clear. That was not controversial. But they certainly weren't liberal. That was icky. So they were the third way. They were new Democrats. They had a new approach. And what it really did is that, if you really looked at what that new Democrat third way was sort of conservatism, but not as bad. They would talk about Social Security, that they needed to cut Social Security to save it, but not as deeply as Republicans would. Or, yeah, abortion needs to be safe, it needs to be legal, but it needs to be rare. And let's not talk about it, it's icky. And let's definitely not talk about climate change. Let's definitely not talk about civil unions, much less marriage equality. These issues were off the table. And what's worse is that they did this micro-targeting their message. They thought they were so clever. They would say one thing to urban voters, and then another thing to suburbans, and another thing to rurals. And they thought they were being so smart by tailoring the message to different communities. But the Republicans had a single message. We had many. We were talking for various sides of our mouth, and voters could smell that insincerity a mile away. If Democrats weren't willing to fight for what they stood for, maybe those issues really weren't that important. As the Netroots came in, we sort of created a different environment for Democrats. In fairness to those third-way Democrats, they did not have the machine that conservatives did to support them. Conservatives had a whole media operation with Rush Limbaugh and Fox News. They had think tanks supporting them and funding them and creating ideas, and they had this money machine from corporations funding them. Democrats had nothing, so there was no way for a liberal to stand tall and proud without getting the crap beat out of them with no support. So the networks changed that, right? We created progressive media. Act Blue came in and allowed campaigns to be funded by us, the people. And institutions like Run for Something and Sister District really focus on that grassroots state-based organization. So what's ended up happening is that now we are on the cusp of a political transformation. We saw that in action last year. I sat up here on stage last year and I predicted that Democrats would win the midterm elections. This was in August when nobody believed that. They talked about crimson tides and red waves. And I laid out a case based on data and special election results that showed that no, we were going to win. And nothing has changed. In fact, things are getting even better for us. Doesn't mean we can relax. Doesn't mean we win without working. But it means that I'd rather be us than them. And there's two reasons why this transformation is happening. One is that the Republicans are falling apart, right? They're a total shit show. They have given up trying to speak to the American people. You've seen this, right? They used to talk about how America's a center-right nation. They used to be really deep into that. They've said it so often that even Democrats believed it back in the day. The data didn't show that, but they claimed it. They don't even pretend anymore. And knowing that they're no longer with the American people, their entire focus right now is on subverting democracy and making it harder for people to vote, if not impossible, and in creating fake and bullshit culture war issues to try to gin up their shrinking, declining, dying base. So there's not much we can do about that other than defeating them at the ballot box. But what's also really exciting is that now the Democratic Party looks different than it did back then. It's not that Democratic Party of old. By providing that support and by supporting strong progressives, we have created an environment where we are now finally unified around a single message as a party. Everybody used to laugh about Democrats in disarray. We are now a party in array. And with that, it gives us an opportunity to really press our advantage. I'm really excited that we're going to be hearing from Justin Jones later tonight. His battle, and maybe they'll talk about this. It would be great if they did. But what really struck me about that entire, his protest and being ousted by the Republican legislature and his reinstatement was that his message of gun safety didn't just resonate in Nashville, Tennessee, but it resonated in the suburbs, and it resonated even in rural Tennessee. Our message is now universal. It's universal in urban, suburban, rural America. It's universal in red states, blue states, and purple states. And that on-the-ground organizing with that unified message gives us incredible opportunities. Last night we heard from a whole new generation of newly elected Democratic Chicago and Illinois officials. And this is a blue state, has been for a long time. They replaced other Democrats, yet they're so much better that policy-wise, it's night and day. We can keep organizing in the bluest of states. Definitely got to organize in battleground states, that goes without saying, but in red states, it matters. And again, Justin Jones is a perfect example of how important it is to organize and build infrastructure and build the leaders of tomorrow in all these states. Because states like Georgia and Arizona were not automatically blue states. They were deep red states not too long ago. And people fought hard, a lot of you in this room did, to turn those states purple. Last year, I made the prediction that we were going to win the midterm election. I didn't feel like I was out on a limb, but it was counter to the conventional wisdom. I'm going to make another prediction. The networks have gotten this far in 10 years. We've built so much, accomplished so much in these last 20 years. I will say that in 20 years, we're going to have a whole new generation of blue states that you can't even imagine today. Maybe North Carolina you can imagine. South Carolina, you might be able to imagine that. Texas, maybe. You might believe it, maybe not. I think Texas is doable. Here's my grand prediction. In 20 years, Mississippi's going to be a blue state. And it won't be blue because we just magically happens. When and if it happens is because we all will have worked hard over decades to affect that change, just like we did over decades to help turn Georgia and Arizona blue. That's our purpose, that's our focus, and that's our opportunity. We have a Republican Party that is almost has taken itself out of the game. They're looking insular, they're fighting with each other. And we have a party that's united. We won't get a lot of these opportunities. We won a midterm election when we weren't supposed to. Now we have a presidential election, and we have an election after that, and every single one of them is going to be the most important election in our lifetime. But they have to be, because we are going to win those. And I am positive, just like I was optimistic last year, I'm optimistic we can make this happen. And we can make this happen because you are all in this fight, and your friends, and our colleagues, and everybody around the country in this fight. So I'm incredibly excited to see where we go from there. And I cannot wait to see what we can accomplish. Thank you so much for everything you do. I love you all.
We're delighted to welcome Center for Popular Democracy's co-executive directors, Ana Lilia Mejia and Demario Cooper.
What's up, man, Bruce?
What
How you doing? My name is Demario Cooper.
And I'm Ana Lilia Mejia.
And we are the co-executive directors of the Center for Popular Democracy, which is, I'm gonna let y'all do
That's
that.
what's up.
Which is the largest grassroots power building organization in the nation.
Our network has 48 affiliates across 38 states, as well as Puerto Rico and DC. And we see our role in the movement is to build the power and the capacity of these incredible organizations so that we together can contest for governing power. Again, that's what's up, right? Because we know, although we agree with Martin that the moral arc of the universe is long and it bends towards justice, we know it doesn't happen on its own. It takes our power.
That's right. That's right. It's good to be here in the summer in Chicago. It's beautiful. I'm from Akron, Ohio, a place called Elizabeth Park. It was also known as the Bottom. I heard somebody scream for Elizabeth Park. That's what's up. I can remember summers where me and my older cousins would be playing with water guns and playing around and just being kids. And then crack came to my community. And those same cousins within a year went from playing with water guns with us to being what I thought was rich. They was buying cars at 15. They was buying $100 pair of shoes and had pagers all across their all across their belt. That was one summer. About 3 summers later, all of them started going to prison. They all got locked up. And I thought something was wrong with my family. I thought something was wrong with me. I thought we were just prone to go to prison. And then I learned that 20, 40, 100 years ago, powerful people have made decisions. Decisions that were tearing apart my family in the moment, tearing apart my community. And then even after that, even after I understood that, I learned something new. That I was born inside of a clapback moment.
And like Demario, actually, I'm also from Elizabeth. I'm from Elizabeth, New Jersey, y'all. Please don't get it twisted.
Give you a little prop.
Like Demario, I grew up believing something was wrong with me and my family. I couldn't understand as a kid why my parents could be working 2 and 3 jobs apiece, and yet the lights were getting cut off, and I knew before I opened that refrigerator door, there wasn't going to be food in it. In fact, I'm going to share, I still remember the pain and shame of poverty. As a little kid, I'll share, y'all, often I went to school without having breakfast. Thank goodness for free breakfast programs.
Word. Word. Word.
I remember one day getting to school late. I had been studying for a test, and then getting to school and trying to focus on that test, and my stomach growling so loud that my classmates not only heard it, but they laughed at me for it. And I remember being so angry and so enraged and humiliated, but I was mad at the wrong thing. I was a child, and I turned that anger towards my parents. I was mad at them for our poverty. I didn't understand that NAFTA had just destroyed my mother's entire industry as a lady garment worker. I didn't understand that the safety net that should have been there to help my father when he became disabled after breaking his back at work, after falling down a flight of steps, that safety net's absence was not my father's fault, but I was still mad at them because I didn't understand that I was growing up in the middle of a system and a set of policies informed by that clapback. Now, Demario, before we continue, we should say what we mean by clapback.
Right, we should say what we mean. So clapback moments have happened throughout American history. And what they are specifically is that whenever black people in this country have built enough power to shift the society in the way that the society thinks about itself, it is immediately met with the clapback, an orchestrated attempt to return society back to the status quo. And in this country, that means white supremacy. But I can promise you, and we can show you,
That's right.
that these moments have happened throughout history.
That's right.
Think about emancipation and Reconstruction,
Jim Crow and the rise of the Klan.
the civil rights and black power movements,
Reaganomics and the Contract for America.
the election of Barack Obama, and the Black Lives Matter movement.
Donald Trump, January 6th, the Dobbs decision. We keep taking blow after blow after blow, y'all.
And what they would help us to believe is that it's some kind of accident. It's not an accident.
It's not.
We know the people who orchestrated this plan. We are living in a 50-year strategy developed by people like Jim Buchanan and the Koch brothers. That's influenced by the Powell Memo. That was operationalized by Lee Atwater, which ushered in the Southern Strategy, Reaganomics, the war on drugs, mass incarceration.
Now,
It's not new.
it's not new. Not only is it not new, it is predictable. It is steady. In fact, they have used the same tactics over and over again. In fact, I could tell you, I could say 3 core tactics utilized against our communities over decades, centuries.
Centuries for real.
1, terror and violence, from Tulsa to January 6th. 2, the expulsion of our voices in the spaces where decisions get made. Consider the 2,000 black men that were elected into public office after Reconstruction, and then think about what happened in Tennessee this year. And then 3, a radicalized, captured judiciary Y'all, the funk, the stench that we see, smell, feel from the Supreme Court, that is not new. That is not new, but thankfully, all is not lost.
It's not lost. Because during every single clapback moment, there was a fight back moment, right? Every time, there was a fight back moment. Look, even from the beginning in enslavement, folks who were enslaved running away from plantations, joining the front line of the Union Army to win the Civil War. Yeah, I said it, to win the Civil War. And if you know your history, you know that's right.
That's right.
To Ida B. Wells, who started an anti-lynching campaign in the middle of the worst time of American history. To Ella Baker, who built infrastructure, building the infrastructure of SCLC and SNCC. And even here in Chicago, Fred Hampton, reaching across communities, diversity to build the Rainbow Coalition. We have always fought back. We have always organized. We have always shared our message to build our base. Look, today, in the middle of this clapback moment, our ancestors learned how to be together differently.
That's right.
The courage to see a world that doesn't exist. To learn how to be together in a way that helps us build more freedom for all of us to thrive.
That's right. Now, y'all, Demario and I, when we assumed our roles at the Center for Popular Democracy, and as we engage every single one of our 48 incredible affiliates, many of which will be familiar to you. Shout out to Lucha and Detroit Action and Sula and Make the Road, so many others. That's right. You can give it up.
That's right. That's right. That's right.
Because people power, y'all. People power. That is what is going to set us free. Now, we know we are in the middle of a clapback moment. We know that there is a clear path in which we extract ourselves from it. History has taught us. We understand that we are called to meet this moment as organizers. And I will say to you that even though the system and structure and the pervasive anti-Blackness that is what's sinking all of us is not your fault. It is your problem. Every single one of you. Because guess what? We are not going to be able to win debt cancellation, student debt cancellation, or actually achieve affordable housing or equitable access to health care in this country if we do not full force confront an ideology that is content to deny every single one of us the building blocks we need to thrive just to keep stuff out of the hands of Black people in America, y'all.
Real.
It is on all of us. We may not be able to sustain humanity, y'all, if we can't confront the real problem at the core in America.
Real. And look, in this room, some people in this room may be people that our great-grandchildren hear about or read about in history books. But most of us, and most of the people that do the real work, will never show up in them places. Thousands will go unnoticed. And as the EDs at Center for Popular Democracy, we really came here to ask Netroots really one question.
One question, y'all. If you knew your actions today, your ability to go work across the aisle, across organizations, to actually deal with the real problem that we are facing in America, if your actions could stop the next the second coming of the next 100 years of Jim Crow,
what would you do?
Send them. Please welcome to the stage, Cephas Uncle Bobby Johnson.
Thank you. Thank you. Before I start, I most definitely want to introduce to you my better half, my wife here, Auntie B. And sadly, we've been reintroduced to this pain. Just last year on April 26th in Phoenix, Arizona, her sister was murdered. Vehicle homicide, but sadly, we've been dealing directly with the police behind the murder of her, Delta Jean Dell Chambers. Now, I need to ask, so that I'm clear who I'm talking to, is there anyone in here who do not know who Oscar Grant is? Could you just raise your hand so I can see? So there's a few of you who do not know who Oscar Grant is. So let me go ahead and share this. At about 12:20 on New Year's Eve, actually it was New Year's Day, Oscar was heavy on my heart. And I texted him, I said, Uncle loves you, God loves your family, and an hour and a half later he was murdered. When I saw that video, I can remember collapsing. And as I came back to, I was in extreme rage, full of destruction. I mean, extremely angry. And God brought to memory how blessed I was to text my nephew to tell him that I loved him, God loves him, and God loves his family. And a calming spirit hit me. And it was at that point I knew this wasn't about destruction, but it was about construction. So anytime I take a trip back to that moment in time, that pain, it's reopening the wounds. So I'm gonna do my best to get through this story so that you can see where we're at today. Of course, the Oakland community, the Bay Area, and the state of California embraced us. They loved on us. They went back and forth to court with us. They stood with us. But most importantly, they shouted out, I am Oscar Grant. And it was for the first time in California state history, because of the community outrage, that we were able to get an officer convicted, charged, arrested, and sent to jail. We just celebrated on July 8th an anniversary of the verdict of Johannes Mesley for the murder of Oscar Grant on July the 8th. On July 12th, just kind of sharing with you how our week has been, Fruitvale Station, the movie, was debuted to the world on July 12th. Of course, July 13th, the verdict came down for George Zimmerman, and as we know, Black Lives Matter was birthed. And today, we celebrate our 9th year anniversary for our organization titled the Love Not Blood Campaign, which officially started on July 14, 2014. Yes. Love Not Blood campaign was created because simply, when we started the Oscar Grant Foundation in 2010, we ran it pretty much for 5 years, and then we gifted it to my sister. So we wanted to continue to do the work, but expand the work to include families that has been impacted. And I want to acknowledge today a father that is here tonight who sadly has just really begun this journey in getting justice for his loved one. His son played for the New Orleans Saints. He was recently killed in Alabama. And I'd like for Glenn Foster to stand up just to be recognized tonight. Glenn, could you stand up? Everybody wants to be in. And I will add, tomorrow we have a panel of fathers that's been impacted by this violence that will be held as a featured panel at 1 o'clock. And so definitely if you can hear the story of Glenn and hear him share his story. But definitely if you see him in the hallways, love on him, you know, share your condolences with him, but embrace him. Because had it not been for your embrace of myself, there's no way I could have continued the work that I'm doing today. So I want to thank all of you for loving on families that has been impacted, embracing families that has been impacted, because that gives us the strength to move forward to bring about real systemic change. So a little about the changes, of course. In California, we have a network of families. Nationally, we have 800 families in our database that we have been working with over the years. But in the state of California, we have a network of families that were able to championship various pieces of legislation, and I'll just run through a few of them really quick. AB 71, use of force data collection. Of course, AB 953, the Racial Identification Profiling Act. These bills that I'm citing are families that have been involved with other coalitions of the state of California in getting this legislation passed. Of course, we had SB 1421, the right to know, AB 748, the video auto release in 45 days. We came back in 2019 with AB 392, the stuff on CARC law, the use of force legislation, one of the strictest in the nation. And of course, just recently, SB 2, decertification of officers that kill and then decide they want to go to another state and then do it again. Thank you. I'm sharing this because part of the work is about us really bringing about systemic change. Listen, the power of the police to use deadly force is one of the most significant responsibilities we can give any public official. That responsibility must be guided by common sense legislation that protects human rights and saves human lives. That's what this is about. In the process of all that, this network of families that we work with, which I stated is about 800 in our database, we provide opportunities for families to come together, to embrace one another, to love on each other, and to be in a space where they can actually at least smile. Because if we can have the family member smile for a minute or 2 minutes, we've done a great thing, because this pain that we're in is a lifetime of pain. So this work is about really making sure that family members that have been impacted, like myself, can continue to do the work with other families that has as well been impacted by sharing with them what they have learned through the process of this struggle. I want to thank all of you for being here and being in this space at this time, allowing me to be on this stage to share with you our struggle and, of course, our hope. Today is a significant day again for ourselves and our organization, and for me to be on this platform sharing this struggle. I like to say this, which I think is so critical. This is not about Uncle Bobby. And sadly, it's not about all of you. It is about your children, your grandchildren, and your great-grandbabies. Because if you fail to stand today, it will be their demise tomorrow. So we have an obligation to the generation that's coming behind us to do this work from our hearts, to really put in the work to make serious change so that they can have true freedom, justice, and equality. And I want to just thank you all. Thank you.
Now welcome Alicia Garza, principal of the Black Futures Lab.
What's good, Netroots? Y'all can do more than that. What's good, Netroots? Oh, we got some power on the way. Oscar Grant was murdered 3 blocks from my home. Uncle Bobby, I'm so grateful for you and all of the organizing that you've done that has encouraged us to stand up and fight. 10 years since the beginning of Black Lives Matter. What have we learned? What have we accomplished? Where have we fallen down? Where do we still have opportunities to build, to fight, to win? 10 years ago this week, Black Lives Matter was born. I was 32 years old with a dream and about 10 years of organizing under my belt. 10 years ago this week marks a milestone. Another phase of our movement was born. Back then, we were talking about pushing the very first Black president of this nation to go farther, to be bolder, especially as it related to Black lives. And just a few short years later, everything would change dramatically. Now here we are on the cusp of yet another shift, one that is ripe with possibility, but also one that demands that we take and implement the lessons of the last decade and apply them to the one in front of us. One lesson is that we need more of us to step up and step in to be the power that we deserve. No more throwing rocks at the castle from the outside. Instead, we are transforming power from the inside and throwing rocks at the castle from the outside. But this time, we're doing it in concert and in coordination with each other. Now, y'all, the brother I'm about to introduce and be in conversation with stepped up to say yes. He said yes to lead, he said yes to fight, and he said yes to trying to figure out how to win. And we thank him for that. And when I introduce him in just a few seconds here, and when he comes out here, I want y'all to stand for our brother. I want y'all to say thank you to our brother. I want y'all, I ask y'all, I beg y'all to keep encouraging our brother, to keep going. Let him know that we got his back. Y'all ready? He's so dope. Justin Jones. Is my brother. Yeah, are you feeling all that? Because that's for you. Can we give it some more? You don't have to stand, but can we get some more? Our brother, Justin Jones, is a community organizer in Nashville. He's a student of Fisk University and Vanderbilt Divinity School, and a servant leader, unafraid to put his body on the line for his community. He has fought for justice since childhood. As a college student, he organized for healthcare and against racist policing. He led campaigns for the expansion of Medicaid in Tennessee and the repeal of restrictive state voter ID laws. He's confronted systemic racism in the halls of power. He has challenged dangerous bills. He has inspired all of us, and he continues to speak truth to power at the state capitol. So please, again, give it up. It's so good to be here with you.
It's so good to be with you, sister. There's so much love in this room.
I hope you feel it. I really do. It's not easy doing what you're doing. And we want to say thank you over and over and over again. Now we're going to get into some conversation, have a little chitty chat. But I want to start off because, we're from the Bay. Anybody from the Bay? I heard it, okay. I heard it. So talk to me a little bit, Justin, about how the Bay has shaped your worldview and your organizing.
Well, even being here in Chicago is kind of a pilgrimage and homecoming for me because my family on my dad's side actually left Tennessee, moved to Chicago, and then moved to the Bay because they didn't like the snow in Chicago. And so I grew up in the Bay Area, Black, Indigenous, and Filipino, and somebody who came from a family that kind of, kept me awakened to what was happening. It was just another full circle, meeting Uncle Bobby, because I remember when the case happened, I remember the anger from my family at home, and I remember people in Oakland taking to the streets. And that was the first time I saw people power. I was in middle school.
Yeah, wow.
And so just growing up in the Bay, we have another close relative, Miss Frederica Newton, Huey P. Newton's widow, and one of my aunties in the movement. And so we have a lot of connections from the Bay, but you can't grow up in the Bay without knowing about what John Lewis, I guess, calls good trouble.
That's right.
But what we call turning up for justice, I guess.
That's right, that's right. We are lucky. Our aunties and our uncles, we see them in the grocery store, we see them at the doctor's office, and they always got game for us, right? I want you to talk a little bit, Justin, about the moment when you saw that something was wrong, but that you knew that you could do something about it. Do you remember when that was?
Yeah, in high school, growing up, I grew up in going to a high school in the East Bay where the school to prison pipeline was very present, organizing against the turning of our schools into mini jails. I remember organizing students to go to the principal's office in high school and being met with city police and telling us that we, were trying to cause a riot when we were trying to meet with the principal about the issues that impacted us. And so it was that moment, as well as 2013 when George Zimmerman was acquitted, and I was in Florida with the NAACP youth chapter. And we just knew we had to do something.
Yeah.
And so your work is a lot of the inspiration of my journey. And I think it's so important to note too that there is that lineage, and there's people we look up to, and there's people who teach us. And there's two names I want to call in here are Harriet Parks and Tessie Bautista, my grandmothers, who were my teachers, who didn't get to go to school, but who taught me what love and justice was, who had more divinity than Vanderbilt Divinity School, who taught me what it looks like to embody what I believe in and to do stuff for generations who are coming up after. And so all that I am is because of my grandmothers, and even when I walk to the state capitol, I bring them with me every time I go into the capitol.
I love that. Shout out to the grandmamas. So, Justin, look, a couple of weeks ago, you were on my TV every single day. All day, every day. And I was cheering, not just because you're from the Bay, give it to Tennessee, I will, but because of the fierce, courageous, radical leadership that you were displaying alongside all of your people that you were organizing with, and really showing us two things. One, that it is not only important but necessary, even when we don't think a thing is possible, to fight for it. But two, also showing us that this fight around gun control is not like just a fight for white people. Gun control and gun violence, right, is a fight that impacts all of us, but it impacts some of our communities a lot differently. Yeah. And I think that you and the crew that you've been organizing with have really helped to show us, right, what it can look like to build a multiracial movement for something that we want without leaving anybody behind. So I want to ask you, Justin, because the cameras are gone now, I want you to talk with us a little bit about the work that is still happening. Where are things at? And then I got some other sub-questions in there for you.
Definitely, yeah. I think we really faced a moment that no one could ever have imagined in Tennessee when, the week of a mass shooting, thousands of young people, mothers, teachers walked out of schools and filled our state capitol.
Yeah.
And I remember what it was like to be on that side of the doors. And so when they came by the thousands to the Capitol, and our colleagues would not even let us say the word gun violence, would not even let us bring it up on the House floor. All they allowed were moments of silence. Wow. But the people were asking us to not be silent, to not be inactive, but to do something. Yeah. And I remember, some signs said, do something. And so all that happened was because of young people who took the initiative to come to the Capitol and demand better. Young people can't even vote yet. Young people who feel disillusioned with our politics, but who came to the People's House and really reclaimed it. Yeah. Reclaimed it from white supremacy, reclaimed it from the system of lobbyists who have hijacked our state legislature, and they're continuing to organize. I think one of the most powerful things is that our movement is multiracial, it's multi-generational, but it's also rural and urban, and it is people who they never expected to come to the Capitol together. And that's what scared them, is that it really was something that we had not seen in Tennessee in a long time. And so how did they respond? Not only by expelling us, but when we got back, they ended session 3 weeks early. We had 3 more weeks of session. They ended it, said we're ending session because they were so afraid of the people showing up in the People's House. And so we have a special session set for August 21st, but in between time, people are still putting pressure on them. They're still showing up. These young people, the Protect Kids Not Guns Coalition, are still organizing in rural counties. And it's powerful to see, because we see a transformation happening in Tennessee. I've talked to more rural white voters, even people in rural communities, who said that they have seen what we're up against, and that these extremists, that's what we'll call them, don't serve any of us. And so I think that we're gonna see a moment of transformation in Tennessee, and they're doing everything they can to try and delay it, but it's coming and it's inevitable.
Come through. Speaking of what we're fighting, the Tennessee State Legislature really showed theyself. I was gonna say something else, but I'm on stage. When you get with the homies from the town, you just say the things, but I had to put that on, So they showed themselves. And I think it would be a mistake for us to just look at that and say, oh, well, these are just people who either are just bad people, right? Or kind of misguided. They actually have a whole strategy in place, and they're following a playbook. And the playbook, right, is called fascism. Yeah. You and your colleagues tried to stand up for what was right, elected colleagues, and they literally just tried to kick you out the government.
Yeah. That's it.
That was their response, like, you just gotta go. And you can't do that. You can't, you can't do that, right? I mean, we were all watching across the country like, bro, you No, that's not how this goes. You can't just, you know? So I want to talk about fascism. And I'm going to show my age a little bit, because, you know, back in the day, we called everybody fascist. Everybody was a fascist. Anybody we didn't like was a fascist. But fascists are like real, it's a real thing. It's like an actual form of government, you know, whole strategy to keep power in the hands of like one person, and then they like use violence and stuff to like enforce that. You know, it's like a real form of government. What is that looking like in Tennessee right now? Are you seeing the rise of fascism in Tennessee, and how are they trying to like enforce that?
So one thing I just want to be transparent about is I'm more nervous talking in this room of friends and progressives than I'm used to talking with all these racist white old men. And so I know, you're like, and when I'm with them, it's like I don't care how they react, but I care about what you all think. That's why I'm up here nervous, because I don't care what Speaker Cameron Sexton say. I will drag him and I can go home and feel okay. And so that's kind of the attitude. My first week at the legislature, I was a new member and I was excited. You know, we did the impossible. Before I was elected, I was arrested 18 times at the state capitol. I was banned from the state capitol for a year. So I knew what it was like to be locked out. In 2020, I slept outside the Capitol along with other young people in the plaza for 62 days, trying to meet with the governor. And rather than meet with us, he had us arrested. In 2021, I couldn't get a job. I was charged with inciting a riot, assaulting the police, disorderly conduct. I couldn't even get a job driving Uber. You know what I mean? I was trying to figure out where to work. And so that's where I came from. So when I got into the Capitol, I was excited. And how did they respond? My first week there, I'm on the elevator. Senator Jack Johnson makes sure to tell me that you are worthless and you don't belong here. This is the environment. You go to committee, you have Senator Paul Sherrill say, as we're talking about a death penalty bill, we should bring back hanging by a tree. We have members who filed bills to protect Confederate monuments because that was one thing that we finally got removed, and they were so angry about it. The statue of KKK Grand Wizard Nathan Bedford Forrest that sat in the most prominent location in our capital. And so, you know, we love to go around the world talking about democracy, but in our state, we don't have democracy. I come from a state that is the birthplace of the Klan, and their children run our government. Their heirs run our government. And so after that experience with Jack Johnson, I started to realize that I'm not here to make friends, but we're here to make change.
Come on.
And I think that is what we have to be unapologetic. And in a state like ours, a lot of my colleagues, we got to be honest, we're with family. Even some of my Democratic colleagues, there's a timidity there. They said, you know, you're supposed to, even when I got expelled, Sister Alicia, they said, go up and apologize, and then maybe they won't expel you. This is what our leadership told us. To apologize. I said, you know who needs to apologize is the speaker to these families, to these young people.
That's right.
And so one thing I learned when we fight fascism, because it is fascism, it's one party rule, is that we cannot bow down.
That's right.
That we have to go up there with the grounding of our ancestors. Tennessee is the birthplace of the Klan, but it's also the birthplace of the Nashville student movement. There will be no civil rights movement without Nashville. We are the city of Diane Nash, of John Lewis, of Bernard Lafayette. We are the city of students who said we're going to continue the freedom rise after the buses were bombed in Anna said we are the state where that continued. And so we come from this duality of white supremacy, but we're also the state where Ida B. Wells challenged lynchings. We're also the state of Highlander folks, but we're also the state of the Clinton Nine. I mean, we have a powerful legacy, and so we're grounded in that. And that's what we see when we go into the Capitol. And so these fascists, yes, they rule our state. We have one-party rule. We don't allow dissent because everyone said, how was it to be expelled? What were you thinking? I said, it was just another day in the Tennessee General Assembly. Because we were not allowed to speak in committee. We're not recognized on the floor. We're not treated as equal members. And I think I got ruled out of order more than any member had been ruled to that point. Because when they shut off my microphone, I kept talking. And as you saw, when they shut off our microphone, I pulled out a megaphone out of my pocket.
Yes. So, look, speaking of stories they tell, you know, I was all excited and they asked me, you know, would you be down to talk to Brother Justin Jones? I was like, I guess so. I'm faking. I was like, yes, yes. And I was reading up, you know, on your background. And, you know, I got on your Wikipedia page. Now, if I didn't have some sense, I would really think that you were trying to, like, let me say this way. If I didn't have some good sense, what I would think was that you were some kind of violent, dangerous criminal. I read articles from your state's newspapers, same stuff. Now, I'm knowing this brother from the incredible, powerful work that he is doing to save our lives, and the way that our media is talking about you is really a thing. Now, the problem is we don't have a lot of media literacy in this country. So we read stuff, and we'd be like, man, I knew they wasn't about nothing. I'm just telling the truth. We read stuff about our leaders, our fighters, and we internalize it. Okay. But then I read your stuff, and I was like, oh, he out here doing direct actions. He's like, I'm like, I see what happened here. One article I read said that you threw a cone through a window. I was like, no, the man tried to run him over. I'm gonna need you to put that part in the story, like actually and truly. So I wanna know how you deal with that, because I can imagine, just like, you know, this legislator told you, well, maybe if you go apologize, that's like a young person thing, go ingratiate yourself. And then it's also like a person of color thing too, right? Go ingratiate yourself and see if they'll give you some grace. How do you deal with the vehicles that are supposed to be telling our people, your constituents, what's happening and how they can get involved, distorting what is happening and distorting the story about you? What are your best practices around that?
Yeah. And I know you have navigated this, and we know that it's been done throughout history. You know, we see how the media portrayed the civil rights movement and our leaders, but I think one of the key things is that, and I want to recognize somebody here because one of my constituents is here. Miss Karen is here from Nashville up
What's
front
up, Miss
here.
Karen?
And Miss Karen taught me something because she was door knocking with me in 2021 when I was running against a city council member who we have 40 members of the city council, 39 of them endorsed my opponent.
Wow.
The vice mayor endorsed my opponent.
You gotta be.
The white unions endorsed my opponent. The only union that endorsed me was the black-led union in Nashville, because everyone thought I was this radical. But we went to the people, we went to the grandmothers, we went to our neighbors, and we talked to them, and we broke through that false narrative, because the greatest way to get out of lies is just to go directly to the people, and let them know that. I think one of the news stations that you read is Tennessee Star, who has this infatuation, and who not only went after me, but went after my grandmother, which is why I took down all.
Grandma.
So went after my grandmother.
Now you know what.
And that was, that's. That's where we might get violent. No,
we feel away. We feel away.
But it's just this was the reaction, and so but we went to the people and we just let them know that yes, they're gonna try and put up my mugshot, but let's put up the mugshots of the folks that we claim to love in Nashville. Nashville claims to love John Lewis. How many times was he arrested in Nashville? Right. And so how can we claim to love people for engaging in good trouble 50 years ago, but then condemn it today?
Yeah.
And so, we just had to stand in that legacy. And I told the media, you can put up my mugshot. I'm smiling in my mugshot. Like, I'm not ashamed of my mugshot, because, I'm going to show my children that what I was doing was for them. Yeah. And so there's no shame there. And so I think that, going directly to the people and really staying rooted in that community. My grandmother couldn't, I keep saying my grandmother's on my spirit today, maybe because I'm in Chicago, but my grandmother couldn't come to my swearing in, and I know Ms. Karen was there, so the community grandmothers came. They all came in white and just surrounded me when I walked into the Capitol. And that image of grandmothers walking to the Capitol together, we all had on our white. People think this white is new. We started this in January, and we walked in together. And when you see movement of grandmothers walking in the Capitol, it doesn't matter if the Tennessee Star is saying he's a violent criminal, because grandmas be like, we're with him.
That's us.
And
He's ours, is what grannies say.
And the first time I was arrested was with a 78-year-old white grandmother named Miss Ellen.
Come through.
As we were sitting in the governor's office, and they decided to arrest the oldest member of the group and the youngest. And it was both of our first time getting arrested. But Miss Ellen had showed up. If you see, when I got sworn in, when I was reinstated, she was the one holding the Bible. And so we have remained rooted in community. And that's what scares them, is that we, no matter what they say about us, we know who we are. We know that, as you know, Maya Angelou says, I come as one, but I stand as 10,000. And so we know who we are standing with.
I'm a little bit obsessed with him. I don't know. Y'all too? Okay. Speaking of young people, I want to talk with you a little bit about why you said yes to running. You are currently the youngest person in the state legislature, and you're either the only or one of the only young people in that decision-making body. There's two.
Myself and Brother Pearson. Yeah.
Saying no to elected office is not about youth. It's about not wanting to be in these bodies that, honestly, there's a stench. It ain't been working for us, so why would I go in there and take my time, my energy, my brilliance, and go try to do something with it? And then we got a lot of people telling us, that's not gonna do anything. And then maybe even you're misguided if you think you're gonna change something from the inside. So I wanna hear from you, Brother Justin, why did you say yes? And what would you say to another young person who is considering doing what you did?
So when my predecessor announced that he was retiring, people started reaching out and saying that we want someone to run. And I also am the first non-white member to hold this seat.
Wow.
And so we were breaking through a lot of barriers, and our district has become a minority Black and brown district. And so it was talking to community and recognizing that for these issues that we've been fighting for a decade at the state capitol and trying to beg to be heard, that number one, there is such a thing as being too late in responding, and that we had to bring some urgency. There was no reason that we should have had to sleep outside for 62 days and no lawmaker would come out and even try and get us into the building, would not open the door. And so there's this quote from Fannie Lou Hamer that I love. She says, move on over or we'll move on over you.
Come on.
Because we're moving on, moving on over. And I think that is the spirit of what we entered in, is that we just got tired of begging them to change. And so we said, let's change who's in those seats. And running for office, again, against a city council member who had all this support, it is intimidating. It is something that, a lot of people didn't even count us as viable. But again, it took organizing, it took coalitions that had come together who hadn't been united. And so I think, the decision that really helped me too was to recognize that it can open a door for other young people to run. Because I remember when Representative Cooper passed away, the predecessor to Brother Pearson, I remember calling him and said, we need more young people here, brother. You should think about running. And even now, as we're fundraising, one of the biggest things we're trying to do is recruit young people of color to run in our state, because 70% of the seats were unchallenged last election. And so we need to disrupt that. We need to get more young people to run. And we need to really, there's a saying that Southern segregationists would say the South will rise again. And one thing I've been saying to people is, no, the South will rise anew. We are building something new in the South. And I think, that, this courage, it has sparked something that's contagious in our state. Because even my colleagues, I've talked to so many of them, even on the Democratic side, who had just been stagnant. They didn't see anything beyond what had been happening. And we finally have broken the system where now people feel like our state is not something to give up on. People are giving up on Tennessee. And if you go to our legislature, even though it's not just partisan politics, but there's 75 Republicans, 24 Democrats, probably 5 progressive Democrats. And so we are a super, super minority. But we're gonna we're building up our movement in there. And so I think that is something I witness as well, is that by showing that you can be in here and still be grounded in community, still, not be unbowed, I think it can hopefully set some type of model for our state, each of us together, because we do this as a unit. Like the three of us, when we got expelled, we were united. You saw Sister Gloria, our white sister from Knoxville, when she didn't get expelled, she didn't miss a beat when they said, "Why didn't you get expelled, Representative Johnson?" Because of my skin color. She said it.
Yeah.
And that's the type of people we need, people who are not afraid to speak truth,
Yep.
and who will hold them accountable.
Yep. I'm telling you, every time I saw you on MSNBC, I would stop what I was doing and just, I mean, I was getting my grandma on too. Justin, I want to talk a little bit about what's next, because we're already in some real serious times. I mean, that's a fact. And it's about to there's about to be more pressure. And in the chaos of a presidential election year, there's both opportunities and challenges. So I'm curious if you can take us 6 months down the road, help us look into 2024, and tell us what is your vision and how can we support you?
Definitely. I think the first thing is that Tennessee hopefully was that canary in the mine, that them expelling us is something that set a very dangerous precedent. And we saw what happened to our sister Zoe Zephyr.
Yep.
We saw that this attempt at undoing democracy, we saw that it's connected to January 6th. That was the exact same thing they were trying to do there. And so we have to recognize that as we enter into this season, and this is the same thing I talked about at the White House, was that the threat of authoritarianism is real. It's a clear and present danger. These white supremacists are buying property in Tennessee. They're building compounds. They are preparing. And so we have to be clear about our opponents. One thing Diane Nash always told me, and it's something that I've kept with me throughout this season, and I know she's here in Chicago, and she's one of my mentors in the movement. She said, don't underestimate your opponent. And so we cannot underestimate what we're up against. And so I think, one thing that we have to start doing is to look at these state legislatures in the South, especially as a front line. It's not just the federal level, but it's these state legislatures where they are testing out. My state was the first state to ban drag shows, shamefully, but we can't ban assault weapons. My state banned trans youth health care. My state, this session, my state is banning books. We have some of the most restrictive anti-abortion laws in the nation, some of the most restrictive voting laws in the nation. And these are the people who voted to expel us, because what they were trying to do was not just expel us, but expel the movements that we were speaking for when we went into those chambers and challenged this legislation. That's what they were trying to expel. And so recognizing that we have to not see places, even the presidential election, they see our states as red and blue or purple, and they'll pay attention to purple states, but a state like mine, they'll just neglect, like, oh, there's nothing gonna happen there. Yeah. And we can't have that mentality, because we're showing that a state like Tennessee, that if you can change a state like Tennessee, you can change this nation. And I think that is again, the message I brought to Washington was like, look at our state. If we're able to break through the noise here, if we're able to build a multiracial, multi-partisan, multi-faith, multi-generational movement in Tennessee, like, don't forget our state. We need resources in our state. People stopped looking at Tennessee ever since Al Gore lost Tennessee. They kind of gave up on Tennessee. Yeah. But it's not a place that we've given up on, because those of us who are living there. And I think so we need people to see our state, to show up in our state, and to come to Tennessee as well, and to stand with us, because if it wasn't for the movement that was happening on the ground in the nation watching, they would have gotten away with expelling us. We would have been gone. Because the speaker, until 30 minutes before I walked into that chamber, had told us that he was not going to seat me on the floor. But he got afraid of the cameras. He got afraid of the people who were watching. He got afraid that if he didn't seat me, we had thousands of people. It wouldn't have been more people. Yeah. And I think it scared him. And then we sent him a letter from my attorney saying that we were going to sue him, because his resolution saying we're expelled does not override our state constitution. And
Right.
so we were able to use those tools to push against him and be seated. So, yeah.
What has it been like to have to go back into that chamber and work with people that, one, don't have your best interests at heart or the best interests of your constituency, but two, really try to pull a Jack move? Like, how do you go back and sit at the table with folk like that?
Well, as I walked in after being restored, I walked in with the energy that they are in the find out portion of our movement. Like, so, number one.
Pretty much.
And I mean, it's been interesting because there's been two reactions. One, some of them, like the Representative Bud Holsey, who filed the resolution to expel me, was on the elevator with me that day. And I said, Representative Holsey, did you learn anything from this experience? And he tried to tell me that, oh, I didn't want to do it. The speaker told me to do it. And so that's why I filed this. But, I really, I like you. It's not personal. I said, you tried to fire me. You tried to kick me out you tried to attack democracy.
Yeah.
It is personal.
It is definitely
And
personal.
so it's just, this is the insanity. And then you have other ones who have doubled down. And so, I'm running in a special election right now. They've spent, the speaker and his extremists, they're funding my opponent. The FOP is funding my opponent, but we know that people power is going to win, so it doesn't matter. I said, y'all can waste your money. And so, we're pushing forward, but it is, we're still unwelcome there. The week I returned, our microphones were still shut off. I've been stripped of all my committees, so I'm not on committees anymore. And so we're not treated as full members in that body. And so our fight is continuing. But one thing that we do have again is that we can get into the building and we can be on the floor, and we'll make our voices heard on August 21st when we come back for a special session. We're having a special session around gun violence, and hopefully we can continue to put pressure on my colleagues to act, because that's what led us to the well. Was that we went to the well because 3 9-year-olds and 3 adults were killed, were massacred in a school, and all my colleagues had to offer were moments of silence. All they had to offer was ignoring these young people who said, we want to live. And so we're going to bring that righteous urgency, that fierce urgency, that indignation back into the halls of power. Whether you put us on committee or not, I'll be sitting up in the committee.
Come on.
And if I have to bring my own sign, because we have to continue to push. And that, we as progressive in a state like my state, some people say, oh, they're the supermajority. You should do what some of my colleagues have been doing for years, which is trying to accommodate and assimilate. Yeah. My mentality is that we're progressive. What do we have to lose? We should come in with boldness. We should come in. You can take a title. This is not my identity. Right. And we're not attached to these titles. Right. And I think that's what we have to bring into leadership. We need lawmakers who are willing to risk something. Risk not getting invited to the governor's Christmas party. Risk not getting invited to play golf. Risk, I don't want to go hunting with you. Y'all, they might shoot me. Why would I want to go with you?
Please don't go hunting with those people. Please don't.
But there are people who confuse proximity to power with power. Right. And they want to be proximate to white supremacists. That should not be our motivation. So that's what we have to keep grounded in, is that, when we got expelled, when they filed that resolution, Sister Lisa, I knew they were going to expel me. Yeah. And so when my colleagues said to apologize, I also was thinking, why would I apologize? The decision is made. This is a kangaroo court. This is a farce of democracy and of process. And if some people heard, they released some audio from the Republican caucus meeting that they didn't know they were being recorded in. Right. And they were so angry because they said, well, we had the votes in line, and they have this mentality that if Tennessee falls, the Southeast will fall. They really believe that we're fighting the Civil War again. That's the mentality that people were up against. Yeah. And so just recognizing that this is what they're thinking, this is their strategy of this new Southern strategy that they have. And so we have to be as strategic and as, have as much foresight in our movement and find some type of solidarity in our movement and bring together people who are being attacked collectively and not do it as individuals or silos, but do it united as because the same people who expelled us attacked voting rights, attacked the LGBTQ community this year, attacked women's reproductive justice, attacked healthcare, are keeping their own constituents in poverty, where 1 in 5 children in my state live in poverty, where 12 rural hospitals have closed because we haven't expanded Medicaid. So we have to bring these coalitions of conscience together and let their constituents know that they're hurting you too. And that when we went to fight, it wasn't just for us, but it was for your children too. It was for those who even send death threats to my office. Like, we're fighting for your children too. Because we want to be free of this madness of mass shootings so that our children can flourish and thrive in this society.
That's right.
So.
I do not want this conversation to end. You see me, I'm over here getting comfortable. I'm like, so another thing. But we are running out of time. But I have one more question for you. I know, baby, that's how I feel too. Here we are, and it's been a decade since our battle cry. Right? It's not the beginning of the movement. You just shouted out all the homies who got us here. You know, Sister Nash, Sister Newton, there's so many. But 10 years since our battle cry. What's the biggest lesson you feel like you've learned in this last 10 years that we need to take into the next 10?
I think one thing that I've been thinking a lot about, and it's something that I'm going to be vulnerable about too, is that we have to recognize that this work is trauma. It takes a toll on us, and if we pretend like these things don't impact us, we give this false narrative of us being as, I'm trying to figure out how to say it. It's like we have to be honest about the toll of this work and recognize that that we cannot do this alone, and that we are not some beyond human people who are not impacted. Like, this work will leave you depressed. It will leave you with anxiety. It will leave you, being brutalized by police and seeing police kill people. This is not normal, and it should not. And so we have to be honest about that and recognize that we need practices of buffer, some things that will help restore us and our humanity. I think that's something that we have to be honest about. And it took me a long time to say that, because for so long I wanted these troopers who I walked by every day in the Capitol, who had arrested me, who had lied on me, who had beat me. I wanted them to think that I was not affected by that. But that's not strength. Because what strength is saying that I was affected by that I had to go to therapy. But I walk into this Capitol now grounded and strengthened, and walk with my head held high, despite all of the madness that you did, despite all the lies, despite all the physical violence and mental violence and spiritual violence. Like, we're still here.
That's right.
But we're not, going to lie and say that it's not taking a toll. But the reason why we're doing this is because, I want my children to not have to do this. I want, it's out of love for my children, but also love of grandma, and of ancestors.
That's right.
And so I think that is what's going to buffer us and sustain us in this work.
I just want to say thank you. Thank you for your courage. Thank you for your vulnerability. Thank you for your honesty. Thank you for your willingness to teach and learn and serve. We owe a debt of gratitude to you. But the way we're going to pay that forward is we're going to stand right next to you and fight like hell to save our lives. Let's go. All right, don't go anywhere. I know, I'm like, whew. So don't go anywhere because we actually have a special guest. Yeah, like a very special guest. Reverend Jesse Jackson, welcome.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow, this
I'm gonna
is,
cry. I mean, you could keep clapping. Woo.
How you doing, brother? Good to see you. Good to see you, Reverend Jackson.
Welcome to Rainbow Push.
Yes.
Good, right?
Good to see you. It's an honor to see you.
Hello. Hello. Hand for Alicia and just one more time. Say for Alicia. I just have a few minutes I've been allowed to speak to you today, and I'm going to express my thanks for this leadership for allowing me to share with you today. Rainbow Push Convention starts tonight at 6 o'clock at Rainbow Push headquarters for the King's Workshop. You who are here tonight, I want you to come to Rainbow Push meeting in the morning. 9 o'clock, we're on television live. Make a big announcement in the morning about my future engagement with Rainbow Push, our civil rights struggle. Need your help tomorrow morning.
We'll be there.
All right? And then meeting the officials tomorrow afternoon. Then we're going to see a film called Save the Children. On Sunday, we're doing an event. Vice President Harris, gospel presentation. In the morning, we have an international day. A lot of focus on Latin America and on Africa. You know, the people coming across the bridges and the waters are being sent here by American policy. We trade with Canada, we embargo trade with Latin America. It's driving policy down there, and so we need to fight for people who have human needs. Cuba, Guatemala, Venezuela, we need to fight for those people who really want to stay home if we were to invest in them. Some of the real people. Somehow we seem not to do that. It becomes the burden of our struggle. Here today in this wheelchair, because I have something called the Parkinson's. My father had that, I didn't stay with him, so I didn't know what it was, really. Then I caught the COVID, and I was vulnerable, the pneumonia. Then I survived. Here I am tonight. You. We ever walk and talk again, but I'm talking tonight, and we're running tomorrow. Let me say 3 or 4 things to you this for me, because Black lives really do matter.
Yes, that's it.
All lives matter, really. So we're somebody. I was about so long ago on the ground floor talking with Dr. King and on the balcony in Memphis, and he was shot. A bullet right across my head as I sized it up. Painful thought. I heard Bevel saying, get low, because we thought he may have a son of a shoot many times. And one shot, and he fled, and we hit this. I was running to see him lying there, his own blood with his So I was on the loose, and somebody said, Dr. King is my brother was Dr. King, Dr. Abernathy. So I went in the room. I was sitting next to him and Mrs. King. Mrs. King, I think Dr. King has been shot. I don't think it's too serious. I was trying to buy some time. I couldn't get my words together. Oh, if you hurry over here. 10 minutes later, AP called and said he was dead. So we had to, on our way to Washington, D.C., Resurrection City, but popular in America, so many poor people, bound for America to be so rich at the top. So we went to Washington. I was given the task by having that to be the mayor of Resurrection City. So one morning, it rained every day, it seemed. It was muddy down there, and they sprinkled group of us on us and tried to run us away. We wouldn't leave. The more I looked in the eyes of the people, heads down, many of them were babies and men that died from hepatitis. Looking at their faces, and I had nothing to get, had no money to give them, no bus fare, no nothing. I remember this poem I heard by Dr. Howard Thurman. Using disinheritance, he said, when your back's against the wall, commit suicide, know that you're somebody that you really do matter. Say, I am. Because I am.
I am.
Somebody.
Somebody.
I am.
I am.
Somebody.
Somebody.
Red and yellow.
Red and yellow.
Brown, black, and white.
Brown, black, and white.
We're all precious.
We're all precious.
In God's sight.
In God's sight.
Everybody.
Everybody.
Somebody.
Is somebody.
My mind.
My mind.
My mind.
My mind.
Is a pearl.
Is a pearl.
I can do anything.
I can do anything.
In the world.
In the world.
My mind.
My mind.
Can receive it.
Can perceive it.
Heart.
My heart.
Can believe it.
Can believe it.
I know I can achieve it.
I know
I can achieve it.
Stop the war.
Stop the war.
Now.
Now.
Bullets.
Bullets.
No.
No.
Books, yes.
Books, yes.
Bullets, no.
Bullets, no.
Books, yes.
Books, yes.
Stop the violence.
Stop the violence.
Save the children.
Save the children.
Stop the violence.
Stop the violence.
Save the children.
Save the children.
Stop the violence.
Stop the violence.
Save the children.
Save the children.
Keep hope
Keep hope
alive.
alive.
Keep hope alive. May
Keep hope alive.
Scream.
Yes. Thank you, Reverend Jackson.
It says to you, in my time, very limited. I'm going to make these observations with you today. We must act this fall. To act this fall, let's close down some gun shops. Close them down. The manufacturing shops, close them down. Close them down. I always preached a sermon called Thank God for Evil. Evil has a way of waking us up. We have this constant evil come out of the courthouse of America today. We're coming alive. When young America comes alive, we change America for the better. And nobody break your spirit. When young America comes alive, you have the power to change America for the better. Power of your innocence. Testimony, you make us better. You make us wake up. You make us come alive. Well, thank you and Justin for your witness. Number one, we must close down gun shops. And two, we must fight for the right to vote, the right to register to vote automatically. You were born in America, you're automatically an American citizen. So, she shouldn't have to register twice. When I started out some years ago, So if you didn't register 30 days before the election, you couldn't vote at all. Now if you sit down in the booth, say your name and where you live, as you register, no or yes, it's right there and you vote right there. We're getting close. We must fight for automatic voter registration. We must fight for access to education on a multiracial, multicultural basis. America being white only is not good for America. We must do better than that. Lastly, the issue of the voting, the shelter and holders decision. So this fall, every place we go, every place we go,
Every place we go.
every place we go,
Every place we go.
this fall,
This fall.
we have an agenda.
We have an agenda.
Stop the violence,
Stop the violence.
stop the schemes to deny us access to each other,
Stop the schemes.
pay less money for education, get more out of it. Well, you march with an agenda. If you're going to stop the scheme by this right-wing corrupt Supreme Court, supremacist court, it's not supremacist court. You must use your power, stop the violence, stop gun shops, use your power to fight for the right to reduce the cost of education, for your right to use your strength to make voting rights accessible, and to use every person on your college campus to register to vote. My friend, let nothing break your spirit. We'll win this battle.
Yes.
Dr. King spoke. 63, and folks, 63, there was one black elected official, all of the South. There's one, Leroy Johnson. I thought this opposition. How would he handle it? Just one black and all the whiteness and meanness. Well, Maddox became governor. Action Maddox used his action as a tool to go on the white votes. Same people voted for Maddox then. 500,000 whites voted for Warnock last year. People can change. People can change. People can get better. He went down to Lester Mass office. He said, Lester, he said, I'm glad to let you sit in here, the only one of your kind. I let you sit in my office. He said, well, thank you for speaking up for my son, give my son a second chance. I have friends who give him a second chance. I'm sure I will. His name is Muhammad Ali. I said, oh shit, say, we can't do that. One good deed deserves another. He backed away from his commitment. 11 sons won a lawsuit. Ali's back to the ring because one man stood up. If all this room was dark, one light. So don't let your light go out. Let nobody treat your light. Say, let my light shine.
Let my light shine.
Let my light shine.
Let my light shine.
That has the power.
That has the power.
Shines all darkness.
All
Let my light shine.
Let my light shine.
So here's my friends, we can win. 6 congressmen now, we got 58 black. We got women in the Congress, women in the Senate. We'll win this nation. We'll send Trump's ass to jail. If Trump does not go to jail, you turn all of them into museums. I mean, how can you avoid going to jail? We tried to bankrupt the nation. He has not supported Ukraine in the battle with Russia yet. We're not saying a word about for Ukraine in the battle, even now. We must do better than that as we elect leaders. Your vote determines the destiny of our nation. Leave me working and wondering. Tomorrow at Rainbow Push, tomorrow we have a mass meeting. Secretary of Hood's Marshall Ford will speak to us tomorrow morning. As I said on Sunday afternoon, big battle, Vice President speaking. International Day on Monday. We will get the Peace Prize from Columbia that day. That night we have an education dinner to seek to challenge children. So we fight back for their education. And with the will to fight for education. Tuesday we're going to have a minister's luncheon. I should at that time reveal my new successor. I'm not leaving the organization. I'm not leaving PUSH. I'm stepping over. I'm going to build more leadership. More leadership. Reverend Brown represents that leadership. Raise your hand, Reverend Brown.
Okay.
National Youth Director Cameron, raise your hand. The point is that I am not leaving the movement. I'm going to the university. I'm going to teach young ministers how to fight for justice. The blessing is a gift. They talk that talk, but you did my Jesus, they should follow him. No, this is my Jesus, follow him. This is my Jesus, follow him. You end up in some jail with some poor people backs against the wall. Ned Roots, I'm grateful to be home with you today. Love you guys very much. I am.
I am.
Somebody.
Somebody.
I am.
I am.
Somebody.
Somebody.
Red and yellow.
Red and yellow.
Brown, black, and white.
Brown, black, and white.
All precious.
All precious.
In God's sight.
In God's sight.
Stop the violence.
Stop
the violence.
Save the children.
Save the children.
Stop the violence.
Stop the violence.
Save the children.
Save the children.
Love you guys.
Thank you, Lord. Bless you. Thank you. Thank you.
We'll push tomorrow, right?
Yep, I'll be there. Thank you. Thank you.
We'll push tomorrow.
God bless you. I'm
There's
praying.
a reception right now.
Thank you, brother.
As the Reverend's National Youth Director, as soon as it happened, I thought, we got to get
Justin.
Netroots family, the Chairman Emeritus Pub Quiz is beginning right here. Ladies and gentlemen, the Chairman Emeritus Pub Quiz is beginning right here in this very space in just a few minutes. And remember, the bar is open.